Welcome to the Socialette podcast, where we empower you with the marketing know-how you need to create the business of your dreams. I'm your host, Steph Taylor, and I'm a marketing nerd, Shiraz lover, and passport stamp collector. Join me as I dive into all things small business marketing and deliver them to you in bite-sized, fluff-free lessons every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Let's get learning. Hey, welcome back to Socialette Podcast. This is episode 153. If you've been feeling a little bit like your business or your life is cluttered and overwhelming at the moment, today's episode is going to be right up your alley. Today's podcast guest is Carly Willoughby-Rolls from Minimalista. Carly is a life coach who works with ambitious creatives to cut through the clutter, figure out what sparks joy, and design and live less complicated lives. In this episode, we chat about what it means to approach life and business with a minimalist mindset, how to do less and achieve more at the same time, and how to simplify your marketing. Let's get to it. Hi, Carly. Thank you so much for coming on Socialette. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I've listened to Socialette for ages, so it's nice to be on.
Yay. Well, so I first came into contact with your business, I think via Instagram, and for a little while, I'm not going to lie, I didn't really know what you were about or what you did until I started digging a little bit more. And then I was quite intrigued. But for our listeners who have no idea who you are or what you do, please tell us, who are you? What do you do? What's Minimalista about?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the funny thing is I think I'm still getting clear on that myself. I don't know how you feel. So I launched Minimalista in the middle of last year.
Yeah.
And I still feel like it's refining itself as we go. But at the core, Minimalista is my way of sharing my learnings from becoming a minimalist myself or shifting. I'm careful not to say that I am a minimalist because there's certainly parts of my life that don't feel minimal at some time, like my daughter's playroom. But becoming more minimalist and shifting more to that lifestyle. So I do that through one-on-one coaching with successful entrepreneurs, talking on stage. So as a speaker, I run kind of empowering events and through other workshops that I run for people.
Awesome. So what actually is minimalism? Like, how would you define it?
I guess the simple part or the thing that people would regularly come to or think about is just that the decluttering, the Marie Kondo sort of concept of getting rid of stuff. But for me, minimalism and the minimalist lifestyle is a lot deeper than that. And I guess that's the place where I come to with my coaching and with the talking. And my favorite quote is from Joshua Becker of Becoming Minimalist. And he says that minimalism is the intentional promotion of the things we most value and the removal of anything that distracts us from it.
I love that. So how long have you been a minimalist for now?
I think there's probably been an element like seeds planted there my whole life.
Yeah.
I grew up, my dad's actually very, like the more I've come into minimalism, the more I'm like, yeah, my dad's actually a minimalist. But certainly my 20s were very maximalist.
How so?
Look, I had a great job. I was, very well paid. I lived in Rosalie and Paddington, sort of inner cities, apartments in the inner Brisbane. I just indulged in whatever took my fancy, whether that was fashion or festivals or going out or, just doing all the things all of the time. And so I think my journey to minimalism probably started about seven years ago now. And in serious, probably the last 3 or 4 I've gotten deeper with the, shifted past those early stages, which were for me were about the decluttering and the letting go of physical possessions and coming into more of the kind of philosophy and lifestyle of living more minimally.
Yeah. Why? So what triggered it? What made you want to start becoming a minimalist?
Well, that's funny because I've always answered this question every time I've been asked in the sort of last 9 months, I've said, it was becoming a mother and settling down, buying my first house, that kind of transition period. But actually, when I look back through some journals and notes that I found, I think it was even a bit before that. So it's funny, I've always kind of pinpointed it being that time. But actually, I think it was maybe a few years, in the year or so before we started having a family, the early seeds must have been there. But it really must have only started to flourish around the time when I was on maternity leave. So I was literally home with all our stuff and having to buy all this stuff for this new person in our life, stuff that I never needed before, right? And so I really didn't know. I was at this point where I was like buying all of these things that people said you needed, but not actually wondering whether or not I needed them or not. So it's just becoming a parent is it that next big shift, I guess, from moving out of home or buying your first house.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, it shakes you up a little bit. And I think that was the time when I really started to question a lot of things.
Yeah, no, that sounds fair enough. And I guess like where I am at the moment is probably like in that maximalist stage, like you were saying, like doing all of the things, buying all of the nice things. So I could probably learn a thing or two from you.
And there's nothing wrong with the nice things.
Yeah.
And it's interestingly, I think the lesson I got out of that, even in my 20s, I liked things, but I always liked really good quality things. So I was shopping when I was working in a kind of more business environment in an organization. I was buying my suits from Saba and Country Road and Wayne Cooper. Like I wasn't buying them from cheaper shops. And I guess in that period, when I was in my 20s, at least fast fashion hadn't really caught up with us yet. So I guess there was still elements there that I could learn from. So even as I've become minimalist and started buying less, has still maintained like that idea of quality and wanting to have good things that will last. So definitely nothing wrong with things and nothing wrong with loving really good things, because if you're drawn to that, that's a good starting point, right, of buying quality things that are going to last, that don't need to be replaced as often.
Yeah, and that's like, I like the example of fashion because like I look at my wardrobe and the things that I love and still wear 5 years later are the things that cost a little bit more, and maybe at the time they probably weren't something I could afford, or it was something that hurt to pay for. But then I think about how many times I've bought like $20 t-shirts that I've worn once, and that's probably more of a waste of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And funnily, one of the blogs, again written by Joshua Becker, he's one of my favorite minimalist writers. One of the earlier blogs I read of his that really, I guess, convinced my reforming maximalist. He talked about this quality over quantity idea, which is not a new concept, right? And it's not even unique to kind of the minimalist movement. But he talked about being able to go into a store and buy a $200 shirt instead of buying $10, $20 shirts.
Yeah.
Of course, for the reforming kind of maximalist fashion in me, I was like, that's definitely a lifestyle I can get behind, right?
Yeah.
So I was convinced into the movement out of that that pleasure I took in, and really it's in materialism. So minimalism isn't about not being a materialist, which might sound a bit confusing, but what minimalism is about is not being so heavily swayed and bedded in consumerism.
Yeah.
And the difference is consumerism is about buying and this psychology that we need more and we can never be fulfilled, and that buying things is going to fill some inner need or hole in our soul, whereas materialism is that love of things. And I've read some research recently, and a book an author brought out actually that said his case was, if we could encourage everyone to be materialistic, to actually love their things, then people would be more minimal because they would repair and care for and look after their things. Being consumeristic, where you just feel like you can buy that $1 shirt and throw it out, put it away, or give it to charity because if you were materialistic and you really cared about those things, you wouldn't so easily discard them and replace them.
I love that. I love that idea. And the whole concept of quality over quantity, like that's something I've really been pushing this year with business. Like I don't know if you've been listening to the past podcast episodes where I've been focusing on quality, not quantity when it comes to posting on social media. So how else can somebody approach business with a minimal mindset?
Yeah, I guess for me, most of the work that I do with my clients, so they're all successful entrepreneurial women. So they've all had businesses for, sort of 2, 5, 10 plus years. And they're successful. And when I say successful, they are successful in the wider accepted definition in terms of they've made money, they've got lots of clients, they might have the followers, the likes, that sort of thing. So they have that notion of success that people subscribe to. But then they have still found that a bit wanting. So the work that I do with them is about approaching their whole life. So this is why I guess I don't say that I'm a life coach or just a business coach, because I coach just a person. And we approach their whole life, business being a part of that, to try and find a way to get more balance and more ease into their life so that business fits in to that flow of their life, but so it's not the predominant or only factor. So they feel that there's less sacrifice in it. So from a business perspective, I guess a lot of the time it's about really looking at whether they need to be doing all the things. And I love, your Instagram bio tag is like, I simplify marketing. And I was thinking when I read that again recently, I was like, I guess I simplify life.
I love that.
The work we do is sometimes about just figuring out whether they need to be doing all the things in their business, whether all the things need to be done at all. And if they do, things like outsourcing, hiring to their weaknesses. If they've already got staff, with some of them do, delegating. So ways to empower those people that are working for them. So it's all about finding ways that they can be doing less to open them up to be doing more of the stuff that's in their flow or zone of genius. And then freeing them up to either pursue different endeavors or different parts of their business. And then in some instances it is about letting go. So it might be letting go certain packages or services or things that they've been offering that have stagnated or just stopped feeling good. And letting go of those things so that they can move on to other things.
That makes so much sense, because I know like last year when we were doing a lot of client work, we had all of these different packages, and then it was like, but we can custom build packages for you. And it just ended up being like this big complicated mess of custom packages and not knowing like who was getting what delivered this month. And like it felt so nice to like cull all of that and get everyone onto standard packages, and it just freed up so much time. So like that definitely makes sense to me. If someone is looking to start minimalizing their life or their business, what would you recommend as the first step that they take?
So this has shifted as well for me. I used to always say much in Marie Kondo fashion. And for those people who are listening, if you haven't heard of Marie Kondo, I mean, where have you been hiding? And clearly you have a Netflix subscription. But so she is a Japanese decluttering expert or professional organizer. Go check her out on Netflix. She has a series that came out earlier this year. That's why I keep referencing her, because I feel like now people are less in the dark about, I guess, the minimalist side of what I do, because they're like, I've seen Marie Kondo, I've seen the Netflix series. So I used to say, much like she does, that the first step is piling everything into a heap. So she talks about like working through categories. So you would get all your clothes together, dump them all on a bed. So in your business, it would you would get all your packages and offerings and services. You would have them all on your desktop, or you would print them all out. You would have them all on your desk, and then you would look at them one by one. So that used to always be my first step, but now I think really the first step is what I call stopping the flow. So that is in your home, for example, stopping the flow of stuff in the front door. So it's one thing to deal with the stuff you've already got, but if you're still letting stuff in the front door all the time, like if you're still going shopping and buying all of this stuff, or in your business, if you're still saying yes to all of these things that don't fit with what your current offering is, if you know you're going to be reevaluating your packages and services, and yet you're still saying yes to people who are inquiring about services already know you don't really want to offer anymore, that's where you've got to start, right? You've got to start with stopping the flow of the things in that you already know kind of no longer fit or feel good or are what you want to be doing. Stop there, then look at everything you're doing, and then bit by bit or piece by piece evaluate, does this still fit? Is this still what I think I should be doing? How does this resonate? How does this feel? Marie says, does this spark joy? That's a fairly contentious question. But I think women entrepreneurs too are really in tune with, or most of the ones I work with, when we actually come to doing this sort of work on their business, more often than not, they're pretty quick to go, oh yeah, actually, I've been resisting this, but I know I don't really want to do this anymore.
Sometimes you just need that external validation. Like you need that person to just say, well, actually, no, it's fine for you to let that go.
Yes, permission is a big part of it. Like I did a series of talks across the southeast Queensland last year, so 6 talks, same topic, but different audiences, obviously. And at every single one, there was a theme of permission. Yeah. So a lot of people, they were specifically around the minimalist lifestyle, not so much the coaching frame, but people came sort of wanting permission to let go of things, so sentimental things or things they'd inherited, or and they really, they just wanted someone to say it was okay to not thing and to just let it go.
I totally get that. Like, so 2019 has been the year of no client work for me, so I can focus on like courses and all of that. But it actually took somebody else saying it's okay to not want to do client work. It's okay for you to not take on any clients in 2019 before I was actually okay to do that.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that's what I wanted to do. So that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. As business owners, it's quite easy to fall into that trap that we always need to be doing more and like never stop hustling. How do you feel about the hustle mentality?
Well, even when you just say the word hustle, I just get this like tightness in my chest, and it's just, I don't know, it really brings up a sense of pity for me, I think. And look, I know that, just like I know that what I speak about is not for everyone, I know there are people who are really in this like great flow, and hustle means to them, work hard, do the work, like it has a different meaning for everyone. But for me, and maybe that's just because I'm a child of the 80s, and I remember watching movies where like people would hustle people. And like, I think like if you hustled someone, you were like cheating them, like it was sneaky and sly. And so now I just can't resonate really at all with, especially women entrepreneurs being like, I just want to hustle, because to me it just still conjures this like really bad, like, why would you ever want to hustle somebody? So, yeah, I know it has kind of a different meaning now for people, and it's a meme and it's on candles and posters and all of that stuff. For me, I think all that aside, it really does bring up this idea that you have to work hard, you have to slog, you have to grind, and you have to sacrifice. And there's a lot of it's that there's a lot of hard work, and I don't even really know kind of the best word, but just that it has to be hard and tough. And yes, being an entrepreneur is all of those things, but it doesn't always have to be that way for you to achieve success. And so that's why I have a problem with this like hustle and slay, hustle and grind, because there is also another way, and that is ease and flow and being clear on your boundaries and choosing what's for you and what's not for you and what's for you right now and what's maybe for you later on. And that there's a lot to be said for respecting that, which I think the hustle mentality doesn't, because it kind of says do all the things all the time. And if you're feeling like it's hard or it's tough, then that's just, you just got to slog it out rather than maybe it's time to tune in and think about what to let go of. Like, and that's why I resist and kind of am on this mission to kind of put an end to this hustle mentality. I also hate the word busy, just
me too.
Just put the words out there. I am literally on a mission to stop this glorification of busy, because a lot of the people I work with are busy, but even when they become less busy, they are still running successful businesses. They're still enjoying their work. They've just found a way to do it that doesn't involve such grind and such force, I guess, a way that's just a bit easier and more subtle.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And you mentioned before it was about setting boundaries. How does somebody go about setting those boundaries?
Good question. I think the thing with boundaries is you almost always intuitively know, even if you don't feel like you're a very intuitive or in tune person, when you've had a boundary crossed, you almost always feel it. And I think even when we're up in our head and we're feeling all cluttered and overwhelmed, most of us still even know when we've had a boundary crossed or when we've said yes to something that didn't feel right. You feel that. Like you feel, oh, my God, why am I doing this? Or why have I done this to myself? Or the minute you say yes to it and the person walks away, you're like, how do I get out of this? Like, and start, thinking of ways, like multiple stories of like how you might be able to get out of that thing. And so I think the first step is just recognizing that and starting to give yourself permission. I think going back to that permission thing, giving yourself permission to say no to things gently and easily, like, you don't have to be an asshole, right? But you can say no and still be a kind, generous, wonderful person.
And people will respect you for it even more.
That's right, they do. And the thing is, when you start to say no and do it from a place of like with the intention of being respectful of your own energy, you're really giving other people permission to do the same as well. And I've really found this because I am absolute recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, maximalist, the things, all the good things rolled into one.
Yeah.
But I found when I started to let go of the control of wanting to control everything, I really empowered the people around me to step up and to do things. And that was when I was working in the organization that I worked in previously. It empowered like my staff to step up and take things on because I suddenly wasn't having to control things. And in my business, it's meant that, I felt free to engage people and get a VA or, different things. And also in your personal life, when you start to just let other people help with things, you realize actually people are always like, life wasn't meant to be easy. But actually, I would question that because you don't feel like it was meant to be hard either. Yes, times and there will be things that stretch you, but I don't think it was meant to be this terrible, hard, horrible existence.
No, I don't think so either. So I love that. Now, there's just so much pressure at the moment to do all of the things, and that's so relevant in marketing at the moment. Like there's pressure to be on every single platform, to be doing Instagram lives, Facebook lives, running ads, like just do all of the marketing stuff. How do you think somebody could declutter and simplify their marketing a little bit?
Yeah, look, I guess my instinct is to say from the kind of masculine energy, from the do, the listen, follow the rules kind of, my first instinct is to say, look at the numbers, right? So, or look at your Google Analytics or your whatever and figure out where your leads are coming from and drop off the ones that are not bringing you leads. On the other side, that myself, so it feels like a bit of hypocritical advice. That's what you should do. I feel like that's what you should do.
And that's what I recommend people do as well. But it doesn't mean I do it.
And I'm the coach. Yeah. The other side of it is, like, if it feels like it's a slog to do, like, I'll give you the example. I don't do Snapchat. I don't do Twitter. And I barely do Facebook.
Yeah.
From a numbers perspective, I probably should do more Facebook because I know that brings in leads. But for me, like, the platform that feels most aligned to the work that I do and where I get the most pleasure because I connect with the most people, like people like yourself, that for me is Instagram.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I pour a lot of, like, time and energy and heart and soul into Instagram, but I don't feel like that's failed me necessarily so far. Like, I don't feel like I've missed out on things because I've put all my eggs in that basket. At a point, I will get to a point where I want to scale, and so then I might think about beefing up my Facebook and doing, some Facebook ads. Certainly, done your challenges, and I'll be ready for it when that time comes to do all that stuff because I've listened to your sage advice on that.
Yay.
But at this point in my business, because I'm still just growing, and because I'm growing kind of slow and at pace, because that fits with kind of my ethos.
Yeah.
It only feels right for me to do one of those things, to focus on Instagram. So, yeah, I guess, you can look at the numbers, do the due diligence, but then also get a feel, don't discard how that thing might make you feel. If Instagram feels like a slog for you because you feel like your feed needs to be too perfect and you can't afford to have professional photographs taken every month and all of those things, then maybe don't worry about that for now. Maybe just do lives or just do stories and post less on your feed. I think
exactly.
It's to be said for feeling into what feels right, but then also asking the questions about, doing the work of why you feel like it has to be so perfect. And, that would be work through my clients with. But I think from a marketing perspective, you talk about it all the time, simplifying the marketing. And for me, the most simple thing is thinking, what is my next step? And I think sometimes in business we get so caught up with all the things all the time mentality and with this hustle that we need to be the queen of every facet of our business. We need to be able to know how to do video and live and whatever and podcasting and they may all be things you do in the next 5 years, but they're not all things you have to do tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, so true.
So I guess for me, I always come back to what is just my next step. Like, what should I focus on this week?
And what's going to bring you closer to that next step?
Yeah, exactly. And whether that's, like, for me at the moment, that's just, doing some more stuff on Instagram, releasing some digital products. Like, that's my next step. And the online course will come, the podcast will come, all those things. Rome wasn't built in a day, I guess.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, that we can do these things at a time, like one at a time, as the desire comes and the skills come.
I really need to take that advice. I feel like I'm working on a million different things. Like, I'm building 2 courses at the moment, redoing a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it's a lot of different things, and it's like that cluttered feeling of not knowing what you're focusing on next isn't a good space to be creative. It's not a good space to, like, grow your business from. So I think, super, super important. So I know, like, a lot of business owners, and you've probably seen this with your clients, but a lot of them rely on, like, how many followers they have or how many likes that they get on social media to validate their business success. Do you have any advice for breaking free of this validation, of, like, this need to have these followers or this need for those likes to validate you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first piece of advice is stop worrying about that stuff, right? That's the easy thing to say. The second thing is followers don't matter at all. You talk about this all the time. Some numbers matter in your business, but your number of followers and your number of likes on a post matter so little. it's all about the engagement. It's about how you interact with people. It's about the relationships you build. And that's true for the advice you would give for social media marketing, as it is for the advice I would give from a coaching perspective, because life is about connection, right? We're human, or we're beings having a human experience. And in that human experience, one of the most important things is connection. So it's about really connecting with people. I mean, I have a really small, by comparison, if we were going to compare, which I do, I have a fairly modest following, but I feel like I have a really great engagement with people. I feel like I get to talk and connect with not like probably all of the people every day. That would be like a whole job in itself.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like the people who need to hear my message get it, and that I get to connect with people on a regular basis through my socials. So I don't really care about the numbers, but that's because I've listened to advice like yours so often that I think rings true, that stuff doesn't matter from an actual business and numbers perspective. It doesn't matter from a building kind of exploiting the Instagram algorithm. What matters in that is building real connection.
Oh, yeah.
So actually doing the thing that feels good and you should be focusing on is actually the thing that's going to make the algorithm work in your favor. But I think comparisonitis is a really big issue that comes up, not just for my clients in the coaching, but also when I do workshops. And every time I speak at an event and every event I go to, I feel like the idea that we compare ourselves to people online comes up a lot. Yeah. And I think the thing I will say on that is it is something we are all suffering to at some degree. But also you just never know whether the person you're comparing, you're never comparing apples and apples.
Oh, exactly. And what you see online isn't always real life.
That's right. And
it's usually not.
We all know this intellectually, and yet we're still comparing ourselves with people whose lives we know so little about, right?
Exactly.
So intellectually we all know we shouldn't do it, and yet we're all on our phone when we're having a bit of a grump moment and then we get triggered by something. And so I always say to people, like, just sit in that moment of being triggered and ask yourself, like, what is this trying to show me?
Yeah.
And so for me in that moment, if I'm being triggered, it might be, well, actually I'm feeling a bit jealous that this person has a girl gang. You know, like I've seen a photo of a bunch of girls at an event and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a bit triggered. The reason I'm feeling a bit jealous about that is because I haven't hung out with my girlfriends in a while, or I'm lacking a bit of connection.
Yeah.
So just find what it is that triggering is there to teach you, rather than spiraling down out of control and you know, into kind of the doldrums about, because there's always a lesson there. There's always something that it's there to teach you. And the more you start to see those moments as there to show you something that you, like your subconscious is there to show you something that you haven't been willing to listen to, the less you actually start to care about the numbers and the likes and the followers, and the more you actually start to just, you know, the funny thing is I was going to release a detoxing from social media guide, but I realized like I can't get off it myself. And so like, that be to the world. There's plenty of detox guides, and you should detox every now and then. I'm certainly a big believer in getting off social media on the weekend or at certain times, or taking a week off when you feel like you really need it. But I'm on Instagram a lot, like totally going to be honest with people here.
But that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
Maximalist thing I do, right? I'm on Instagram a lot, like hours a day. But
hours a day.
I love it, and I don't get triggered by it. Like
that's good.
I don't almost never feel a negative reaction to things that I'm seeing online. And so that's why to me the likes and the numbers and stuff don't matter, because I'm genuinely enjoying being in that space, and I'm enjoying the connection and the DMs and sending voice DMs. That's my new thing to do.
Well, I mean, like we pretty much met via Instagram DM, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I met you at an in-person event, and then we teed up a podcast via Instagram. So like so much actually does happen through Instagram, but it wouldn't have happened if you'd just like, I don't know, randomly liked a post of mine and left a very generic comment. It was because you actually took the time to leave a meaningful comment, and we started talking about that.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's like we know the right thing to do. Right? The right thing is to use social media socially.
Yeah. But like real social.
Up in the numbers. But also like the reason why I have like, I think it was doing your course where it was like we were encouraged to look up something online I never knew about to figure out what our engagement numbers
yes.
like. And I looked it up and it was like regular engagement is like what percent? What's regular engagement? Like,
oh, it depends how many followers
5%.
you've got.
And I'm like, I was at like 20%, like ridiculous apparently engagement. But that's because I engage with people so much.
Yeah.
So you get what you give.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know another big thing that a lot of us struggle with is the dreaded email inbox as well, and the DM inbox. But what would you say your biggest tip for dealing with emails is?
If you're feeling overwhelmed, again, I think the first point of call should always be stopping the flow.
Yeah. And
so with email, that means unsubscribing from every email list you've ever subscribed to.
No.
Spades. So not Steph's. Don't unsubscribe to Steph or mine. No, but I go through these phases where I unsubscribe to all of them. So even ones I really love and I get a lot of value out, I just go through these phases where I just feel like I just need to completely clear the decks and trust that. This is the thing with Instagram as well. If you go through or Facebook and delete, stop following hundreds of accounts, the ones that are really meant for you, that really resonate, you'll end up following them again.
Yeah.
But sometimes every now and then it's good to have a big clearing of the decks so that you invite fresh ideas into your space. Otherwise, we can just get too consumed with what we're consuming that we stop creatively consuming. Like we stop reading different kinds of posts or listening to different kinds of podcasts. So we get stuck inside a bubble. And so with email, absolutely, like just go through and literally unsubscribe to everything. That would be my first thing. And the second thing is I think getting really clear with boundaries on email.
Yeah.
We went through, I feel like having worked in quite a large organization where I would have got like thousands of emails a week. And because I was in that phase where I was like being all maximalist perfectionist, I replied to every single was not really big on the prioritization and focusing at that point. But we went through this kind of wave, I'd say about 5 to 7 years ago, I feel, where it started to be cool with email to put on your email signature or just to write really short emails.
Yeah.
And people had on their email signature, like, we subscribe to the short email strategy or something like that. So we went through this phase where it started to become cool and accepted that we were all just going to use email for like just that basic interaction, kind of transactional stuff. And then I feel like we moved out of that phase and back into the like fully consuming, getting bogged down and sending really long-winded, crazy emails and feeling like we have to email all the time.
Yeah.
So I think, being clear on that. Like if you work a couple of days a week in your business, having that in your email signature. I will respond to emails on Monday and Wednesday. So I only work 2 days a week in my business. I still have 2 young daughters at home, or one at home with me and one at school. So I just work school hours.
Yeah.
And I'm not apologetic about that because that's just what I do. I'm clear about it. So being clear on your email signature, what your opening hours are, when you will email people back. And the more you send emails out that are like that, the more you start to train people when to email you or if to email you.
Sometimes it's just easier for them to pick up the phone and call you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's the other piece of advice, right? start asking yourself, do you need to send an email about this thing?
Yeah.
Or call the person and have it be done in like literally 3 minutes instead of sending an email and then worrying for the next 48 hours whether they got the email, whether you wrote the right thing, what they're going to reply. When they reply and they don't answer, I was always like, if someone sent an email and asked 5 questions, I wrote back to all 5 questions. But then I would send emails and ask 5 questions, and then people would email back and answer just 2, and I would be like, "What is going?" And you get over that in a phone conversation in minutes, right? Because it's just forth. You don't end the conversation until you're satisfied you've got all of the answers that you need. But in email, that exchange is just different. Yeah. So I think getting clear on why you are using email, when you're using it, and if there's a better way or a faster way, easier way to get your message across. Yeah. And those 3 things in combination, I've really seen a huge reduction in the emails that I receive. And then things like, having your packages and services on kind of an automated loop, things that you would talk about with the email marketing, so that you're not getting bogged down in that administrative side of things, where people these days are fairly okay to accept that would be on an automatic loop. That's not doing them a disservice, or it's not disingenuous to have an opt-in on your website where they know that they're putting in their email address and then you're just going to kind of, a system is going to send you stuff. Like being okay that we're in that phase of business now where automation is accepted and it's there for the using in the right way.
Yeah, and it saves so much time. It's crazy how much time you save. So at the end of every podcast episode, I have 3 questions that I ask every guest. And the first one of those questions is, in your time in business so far, what has been your biggest whoops moment?
Good question. Biggest whoops moment. I don't know. I want to have a really juicy bad one, and I can't think of anything.
It's probably a good thing. Like if you can't think of one immediately, it probably means you haven't stuffed up too badly yet. So,
it's like I haven't turned up to anything yet with like out my slides or my laptop or anything. Oh my God, I don't want to be the loser who like looks like they're a recovering perfectionist who really just can't find anything that I've done wrong. I think probably my biggest oops moment is sometimes I've swung the pendulum too far and I've actually taken things too slowly.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's good to be in the extreme of either hustle hard, slog, 12-hour days, or it'll be fine, cruising along, not really doing much. And I feel like over the Christmas break, because my daughter's just gone from prep to grade 1. So we just did the Christmas school holidays, which here in Queensland, it's like 7 weeks. Oh. It's a long time. And I'd scheduled my clients around that so that I didn't have any clients, like coaching clients during that time. So I did some speaking and other things, but no coaching clients, so that I could have that time with her. Yeah. But in hindsight, the biggest oops moment was probably not planning for that well, like losing this momentum that I'd built up in 6 months. It was also the first my first break I'd had since becoming an entrepreneur, like since going on my own. And I misjudged how easy it would be to get back into the flow of it. Like when you work for an organization and you just take holidays, when you turn up on your first day, like the work's just there, right? Like you just
have to do it.
Into it. You have emails you have to reply to, but when it's your own business, you could actually ignore that stuff for a really long time if you felt like it. So yeah, I think that's my biggest oops, is not figuring out how to take a break and come back and keep the momentum going. And
yeah, I totally agree with that. It is really hard to come back after a long break. It is really hard. Okay, next question is, what has been your biggest growth moment so far in business? Is there something like super scary that you've pushed yourself to do that you wouldn't have normally done, or something that's challenged you a bit?
Something that challenged me last week which I'm getting. But I've always felt like I've always kind of worn my heart on my sleeve. But I also want to look like perfectionist want to look perfect, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting better at being vulnerable, like just being honest about the struggle. So last week I had a client quit on me. And so I coach in blocks. So I do 6 sessions or 12 sessions at a time with someone. And I do that so that there's a solid commitment in both directions. And this was the first time I had a client do 3 sessions and then say that she didn't want to do the other 3. So that was a really tough moment, and I had to engage all of my tools and exercises, and it was a real moment of growth for me because it was the first time I'd really been challenged in a way that I felt like I completely fell apart.
Yeah.
And then had to go to my toolbox and work myself through it. And then when I did, I was like, so that's what my clients feel like, in these moments where it's not like otherwise I'm this perfect person who's walking around without any issues, but I feel like I hadn't been really solidly challenged in a long time.
Yeah.
Going along really smoothly. I had all these tools that I use, all the kind of mindset work that I'd done had put me in this really stable position. And that was the first time where I really felt solidly the rug had been pulled out from underneath me for a while.
Yeah. But I feel like that's something, it's something that so many people in client-based businesses go through. And you'll probably grow from it in that you'll change maybe it'll change how you look at, or like how you choose who to work with in the future. There might be like a new red flag there, or like a warning sign that you hadn't thought of before, something along those lines. Yeah,
absolutely, huge growth in it. And but I guess the growth, the thing I find now is, now I look at those opportunities and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much growth in here. How can I learn? Whereas if we'd had this conversation, well, we wouldn't have been having this conversation 5 years ago, because I would never have put myself out for being on a podcast. But, if you'd spoken to 5-year-old ago, Carly, like that stuff would have just knocked me for 6. I would have just been in a massive ball of tears forever and thought it was the worst thing, and I would have thought this whole positive, like, look for the growth, was just total bullshit. I would have just been like, get away from me, don't talk about growth, self-pity. So that's the other thing, is when you go through those moments of growth, it's a nice reminder of how far you've come.
Oh, yeah. And like, I think the one thing that you develop as a business owner that nobody else develops quite like we do is resilience.
Yes.
And it reflects into other parts of your life as well. So like, even if you're going through like a tough time in another area of your life, you can use that resilience that you've built from running a business and apply it to whatever else is happening. Awesome. And the last question that I have for you is, what advice would you give to your pre-business self?
Don't wait till it's perfect. Just do it.
I love that. Yes.
I'm still giving that advice to my current business self and my future business.
Me too. Just throw things against the wall, see if they stick, and then worry about making it perfect later.
Right. Just do things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, Carly. So tell our listeners where they can find out a little bit more about you and about Minimalista.
Yes, you can jump on my website, which is minimalista.com.au. You can find me on Instagram, and my handle is @minimalista.com.au.
Lovely.
And you can find me on Facebook, but it just might be a bit few and far between. Again, minimalista.com.au. But yeah, mostly on Instagram. You can jump on my mailing list on my website as well, and I'm going to start trying to send out more regular newsletters.
Actually, you have a really nice download on your website. It was like digital minimalism or something like that.
Yeah. Digital health checks.
Yes,
so
I love that.
Figuring out whether or not you have a healthy relationship with the digital world.
Yeah.
and maybe what your kind of digital, where you are on the radar of like really healthy relationship to maybe not so, and then what you can do about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Carly. Like, I've learned a lot, and I'm pretty much going to go and declutter everything now. Hopefully our listeners will as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steph.